Hello, and in this video, I'm going to be able to teach you how to solve one-step algebraic equations. To solve any equation for x, we need to first be able to isolate x, which means that x is alone on either side of the equal sign. To be able to do that, we have to use the opposite operation to be able to get rid of other terms and factors like this. For example, in this equation, 5 is being added to x. So to be able to get rid of that 5, we would subtract 5. But to be able to keep the equation true, we would have to subtract 5 on both sides. Once we do that, we are left with x on this side, and the 5's cancel out because one is adding, one is subtracting, and 3 on the other side as these subtract. And therefore, x equals 3 in this equation. This equation is very similar to the last. The only difference is that we are subtracting instead of adding. Even though this equation has that slight difference, this still applies to the same rule. We need to use the opposite operation to get rid of this negative 3 and leave x alone on one side. The opposite operation for subtraction is addition. Therefore, we would add 3 to both sides to keep the equation true and get rid of the 3 over here. That leaves us with x on this side, which is equal to 4 plus 3, which equals to 7. Therefore, 7 is the answer to this equation. In this equation, instead of adding or subtracting, we're multiplying x, as this part could be written as 4 times x. Now that we know what operation this term is going through, we need to be able to use the opposite operation, like the other examples, to get rid of the 4 and isolate x. In this case, the opposite operation for multiplication is division, so we divide both sides by 4. This leaves us with x on one side, as 4 divided by 4 is equal to 1, and that equals 24 divided by 4, which is equal to 6. Therefore, x equals 6 is the answer to our equation. For this equation, we again need to identify what operation is occurring. In this case, it is division. As we can see, x is divided by 4. But now we need to isolate x, which means we would need to get rid of this 4. To be able to do that, we again have to use the opposite operation. In this case, the opposite operation for division is multiplication. So we need to multiply both sides of the equation by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1, so these cancel out, is equal to 3 times 4, which is equal to 12. Therefore, the answer to this equation is 12. Hopefully, after all of this, you realize there's a pattern. In each of these equations, we had to use the opposite operation to be able to isolate x. That means for addition, we need to use subtraction. For multiplication, we need to use division. For division, we need to use multiplication, and for subtraction, we need to use addition. We need to be able to use these to be able to isolate x and therefore solve it. However, for all of these equations, we used one-step equations, which meant we only had to use these rules once. We further need to remember that when we use one of these opposite operations, we also need to apply it to the other side. Then that would allow our equation to be true. After this lesson, I hope you guys have learned how to isolate x from one-step equations, as this is a big part of algebra in the coming years.